Hello friends, and welcome to La Rosa Reads. I'm Denise La Rosa, and today we're going to have some fun diving into some books and films. Let's do this. I absolutely love you guys. One of, if not my main goal for this channel, was to build a community of book lovers for us to talk about books. I mean, I say that at the opening of most of my videos, let's talk books, and we're doing it. It's so exciting. And recently in the comment section of one of my videos, someone said they would like for me to talk a little bit more about passing. And I figured, absolutely, that makes sense. And I would love to talk about this book that absolutely blew me away. Now, there is also a film adaptation of this book on Netflix, and that took me to level this up a little bit and say to myself, why not only talk about the book, why don't I also talk about the film? And I have two book to film discussions for you today. The first one being Passing. So Passing by Nella Larsen is a classic book that really does an excellent job of grappling with the topic of light-skinned Black people passing as white in order to make it in society, whatever make it means, whatever success means. It can mean something different for everyone. And everything from passing for certain privileges or the ability to go into certain restaurants or stores to passing completely in life, even marrying someone of the white race who thinks that you're white too. So that is a lot, and it's all happening in this book. So Irene is a woman who has always played by the rules. She grew up in Chicago, is a light-skinned Black woman. She grew up with a young woman by the name of Claire. Claire was a little spicy, a little edgy, had a rough upbringing. Her father died tragically, and that is not a spoiler. He died tragically, lived a hard life, was an alcoholic, and all of a sudden, Claire mysteriously is whisked away to live with her aunts. Now, the reason why Claire is able to pass, she is light-skinned. Her father, it's a little fuzzy to me, but she was raised by two aunts who are white. And her father, I believe, was their brother, I believe. But I believe it's on her father's side. And they were like done with him for being with a Black woman and having this Black child that they ended up raising, which I can only imagine how difficult her life was. And she does dive into that. They were strict, and she had a rough go of it. And Claire decides to fully pass as white. And it was easy for her because she was being raised by her white aunts and ended up marrying a white man who was a racist. Fast forward to their adult years, and Claire and Irene run into each other at a restaurant that made it very clear that both of them were passing as white in order to get admittance into this restaurant. And the story just continues to get messy. So there's a little bit of like single white female, single Black female vibes. Claire almost is like infatuated, obsessed with Irene, and not just Irene the individual. It's more than that. She's obsessed with Irene's life. Irene is married to a Black man, a successful doctor, has two sons. Claire has a daughter, but she's living a lie. And she becomes really lonely and yearns for moments and opportunities to socialize with Black folks. She's missing that part of her identity. And getting in with Irene and her family and that prestigious circle of wealthy Black people allows her to just kind of dive back into the Black community and spend time with Black people. And it's kind of working Irene's nerves. And rightfully so, because Claire and Irene's husband are spending a lot of time together. Let's just put it that way. I don't want to give any spoilers. What I will say is the film adaptation was absolutely breathtaking. First and foremost, the fact that it was in black and white was fun, like such a phenomenal choice. So good because the cinematography, the costuming, everything took you to the 1920s. It just embodied that era in a way that made the story be conveyed even more in a more like real, tangible way that just put the viewer into that time period. So loved that. The director is a biracial woman. I believe she's from London, England, and she too struggled with just racial identity, seeing her mom and some of the struggles that she had around racial identity. And so this book and this project of directing the film was very near and dear to her. And it showed. It totally showed. What I found interesting about the film adaptation is that it allowed me to see some layers to the characters' personalities in a way that, yes, I was imagining it in the book, but it shed light on Irene's depression, possibly postpartum depression. I didn't quite get that sense that she was really depressed. I got the sense that she was a very privileged woman with a lot of help around the house and was almost like bored with her life. But the film really allowed me to see this fragile, darker side of Irene. So that was interesting. I also found it interesting that people have said that this book is a part of the LGBTQ plus books to read. And, you know, now that I think about it, Irene and Claire, they have such an intriguing and complex relationship with each other. The way they look at each other, their fascination with each other. It does make you wonder if they were longing to be lovers, or were they just infatuated with each other and envious? It could go any way. Any of those ways you could interpret it. And that's what the director of the film said. She left everything about this film and this book really leaves it up to the viewer, the reader, to decide what's really happening in the lives of these characters. There's a lot of silence, a lot of facial expressions, a lot to be interpreted, and there's freedom to interpret it any way you choose based upon your own lived experiences, your own identifiers. And I found that to be so fun. I love that this book and the movie didn't like spoon feed me the story and allowed me the opportunity to kind of be in the director's chair and have fun. And the ending, Lordy, the ending of this book and the ending of the film did an impeccable job of just setting the scene of how this story ends. And it's a boom kind of ending. Like, what just happened kind of ending. And I love those in films and books. So I think that Passing definitely delivered for me. It was a 5-star prediction. I highly recommend folks to read it. It's a short novel, but it's small and mighty. I absolutely love it. And if you've read it, let me know. Let's talk about it and keep the conversation going. So in the vein of book to film chatter, I would like to take this time to talk about Ma Rainey's Black Bottom. This is a play by August Wilson, the late legendary August Wilson. August Wilson is just someone whom I admire greatly. And I don't think it's just because I'm a Pittsburgher. I think for me as a former performing artist who also choreographed and just I've written songs. I love the process and experience of creating art and the art that he created and left us with. It's just so profound. It is so deeply moving. It will entertain us and move us and challenge us for years and years and years to come. Ma Rainey's Black Bottom is one play out of a series of plays in the Century Cycle. First of all, can we just give August Wilson his flowers for being so brilliant? I mean, it's one of those things that I'm like, wow, like, why didn't I think of that? But of course, he thought of it before I was even born, I think. But anyway, the point is the Century Cycle has plays that take place in each decade of the 20th century to just really help the audience understand the Black American experience decade by decade by decade. Ma Rainey's Black Bottom is a part of the Century Cycle that dives into the 1920s. Ma Rainey is a famous singer, sassy, spicy, fantabulous. Yes, we can call her a diva. And she is about to go into a recording session with her band. This play is just so brilliant because it essentially takes place at the recording studio. Yet it's so full of action, and the dialogue is just, it was just so moving, and I was transfixed. I was just taken to a place that I didn't even need to go anywhere else but stay in that recording studio. Most of the band members are older, and one of the band members is younger, clearly quite a few years younger than the rest. And he was so brilliantly played by the legendary, late, great Chadwick Boseman. I think it's arguably his finest performance, but let's back up to the play. So I decided to read the play first and then watch the film on Netflix. And oh my goodness, I could not stop laughing. I was crying. And the wisdom from the band members, some of the things, like in all the banter, there were nuggets of wisdom that were dropped that just, I had to stop and listen and absorb and just kind of repeat what I had just read and let it sink in. So this play just takes you on an emotional ride that is, I think, a great depiction, an accurate depiction of what being Black in America in the 1920s could have been like for these musicians. One thing that I find to be troubling is how Black musicians, Black artists, have really gotten the raw end of the deal in the earlier times. So when we see Black artists today, such as Beyonce, such as Usher, and I mean, I'm really telling my age, I'm like naming all those people who are like my age. But when we see these artists taking control over the business end of their careers, these Black artists doing that, it did not happen easily. It did not happen overnight. And unfortunately, it took a lot of Black artists' heartache and brokenness and brokenness to really teach the artists of today a lesson to really mind their business, like pay attention and take control. So these white producers, these white music producers and managers are really the ones that are getting all the money. And as fabulous as Ma Rainey is, she is not getting what is her due. She's, financially speaking, she may get a lot of attention and a lot of applause, but she's not really getting her just due, and neither are the band members. And it's just heartbreaking, and it has the potential to break these people as individuals and as human beings. It can really get to them, this injustice. And the film adaptation, directed by Denzel Washington, was absolutely amazing. The way Denzel has just honored and embraced and celebrated August Wilson, even filming a lot of the August Wilson movies, well, Fences and Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, like trying to find ways to do some of this work in Pittsburgh, in the Hill District where August Wilson grew up and where the plays oftentimes take place. just shows how Denzel really gets what August Wilson was setting out to do. They really are like kindred spirits to me. And he being Denzel, made some choices in film that had to be made. So in the play, everything takes place in a recording studio. There's some things that had happened outside the studio that we hear about once people arrive in the studio. And of course, being a film, Denzel played around with that a little bit and took us like right outside the studio in the neighborhood and here and there. But he still stayed true to the majority of this work taking place at the recording studio. So he had to make some directorial choices that I think still honored the work of August Wilson, that did it justice and didn't totally turn it into something that I think August Wilson would not have approved of or not have done himself had he turned this into a film. So I love that about what Denzel Washington did. And Chadwick Boseman, who goes down as one of my all-time favorite actors, people at the time that he was filming this had no idea how ill he was. And he was visibly thin and frail looking. He didn't look that great. There was one of the actors who thought he was being a little Hollywood and had gotten full of himself because on the set he had like massage therapists and people like giving him massages and like taking care of him in between takes of the film. And the reality was he was dying of cancer, colon cancer. And people did not know that. And knowing that now while watching this film and his performance, it took so much out of him emotionally and physically. A healthy person would be exhausted, and yet he was able to deliver such a stellar, mind-blowing performance when he was so sick. It just shows what an incredible actor he was and how blessed we were to be in his presence, to have his work, how blessed we are to still have his work. So I have to tell you guys, typically I say the books are better than the films. I want to say that, of course, the play, Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, and the book, the novel, Passing, were absolutely incredible masterpieces to be celebrated and honored and treated with the utmost respect when turning them into films. Yet, I have to say, these directors and the actors knew the assignment and delivered, and I found myself saying these films are just as good as the play and the novel. So I encourage you to check out both of them. I love them both so much. There is so much that we could talk about once you watch them. So please let me know what you think and stay in touch. As we wrap up this summer, I hope that you would check out this video of me reading at the beach. And until next time, happy reading. Bye.